Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. A few days ago, I was planning on releasing a very different video as there had been some disturbing news in regards to Ajit Pai's crusade to end net neutrality. However, in the interim, some much larger news occurred that I had not actually noticed in the midst of everything else going on. A few days ago, the FCC voted 2-1 to begin tearing down net neutrality regulation that was put into place a scant 2 years ago. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the terms net neutrality and Title II, please allow me a moment to provide a brief overview. In 2015, the FCC, then under Tom Wheeler, imposed the net neutrality regulations on broadband internet service providers. What this did was to ensure that no matter the source, all data was to be treated with equal priority, whether it be in an advertisement for Amazon, an email from a loved one, streaming a movie from Netflix, watching a video on YouTube, or playing an online game. None of those would take precedent over the other. Without net neutrality, internet service providers would be able to throttle bandwidth from whatever source they choose, allowing other services to reach their consumers faster than those that were throttled. Data from 2013 showed clear evidence that Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon had been throttling Netflix in order to prioritize streaming services that either they or their partners provided. In addition, it was reported that Netflix was paying internet service providers in order to have them remove the throttling. Around the same time, Netflix increased the service rate for all those with streaming plans by $1 per month, and most anyone would be able to make the educated guess that the Netflix price increase was due to their having to pay internet service providers to uncap their data rates. During that time, some Verizon Fios customers found out that their Netflix connection rates ran approximately 8 times faster when they made use of a VPN. Why? Well, because the VPN made use of other pipes that Verizon had segregated Netflix streaming from. And in spite of the fact that all of this information can readily be found online in less than 5 minutes of searching on Google, Ajit Pai states emphatically that no such thing ever happened.
The proximate cause for pushing for this new type of regulation, which was much bigger and much broader than anything before.
There was none. We were not living in a digital dystopia in the years leading up to 2015. By contrast, actually, the commercialization of the internet in the 1990s up to 2015 represented, I think, one of the most incredible free market innovations in history. With light touch regulation, broadband providers spent $1.5 trillion on infrastructure. Companies like Google and Facebook and Netflix became household names precisely because we didn't have the government micromanaging how the internet would operate. And that Clinton-era framework is something that I think served us well. And going forward, I hope it continues to serve us well.
So what is something, pulling back Title II, what is something that an ISP or an internet company can do that they wouldn't be able to do as easily under Title II?
Well, nothing, in my view, because if you look at the record that the FCC had on the books in 2015, internet service providers were not willy-nilly blocking traffic and throttling traffic. To the contrary, these were all phantoms that were conjured up by people who wanted the FCC for political reasons to overregulate the internet. And so going forward, if we go back to the rules as they were previously, we are not going to see this parade of horribles that we are sure to hear about in the next coming weeks.
Of course, there's little else that one could expect from the FCC chairman, who was an attorney for none other than Verizon. In addition to all of that, Ajit Pai and the FCC are blatantly ignoring growing evidence of fraud. In a statement released prior to the vote, Evan Greer, director of Fight for the Future, had the following to say. The FCC is still refusing to release proof of an alleged DDoS attack that silenced voices in support of Title II net neutrality protections, and now there is significant evidence that a person or organization has been using stolen names and addresses to fraudulently file comments opposing net neutrality. If the FCC has any legitimacy, it simply cannot move forward until an investigation has been conducted. We need to know who was doing this, if Ajit Pai or other FCC officials knew that it was happening, and whether any of this illegal activity has been funded by companies like Comcast and Verizon, who have a long history of financing AstroTurf groups. State attorneys general should immediately investigate whether people in their state were affected by this, and the FCC should immediately release any and all information that it has about who is submitting these fake comments. Once again, Ajit Pai has refuted the claims of fraudulent comments. However, The Verge was gracious enough to post a link showing a search result with a filter searching simply for the phrase, "the unprecedented regulatory power the Obama administration imposed," which yielded 443,498 results of the total 2,183,507 filings at the time of the recording of this video, or a full 20% of all comments contain the exact phrase. However, The Verge independently sought out to verify some of these filings, and those contacted had no idea where the posts came from and that they did not post the comments themselves. Indeed, according to Fortune, once the spammed fake comments were excluded as of May 15th, an overwhelming 97% support net neutrality regulations under Title II, meaning only 3% of all legitimate comments actually support Ajit Pai's quest to abolish net neutrality. And unfortunately, it seems it's going to work. This is a disturbing precedent that Ajit Pai is setting in his quest to support and fuel the greed of internet service providers. The FCC is moving to abolish regulatory standards in clear opposition to the will of the people, and it is a sad day indeed when the government that is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people are so clearly against the people. What does this mean for gamers? Well, I'm sure many of you are aware how tied to the internet gaming has become. From digital distribution to online DRM to game updates to online gaming itself, the internet is a staple of the gaming community and has been for some time. It doesn't matter which platform you play on or what game you play, the internet is involved in some fashion or another. This could mean that gaming companies and digital distribution platforms could be forced to pay to avoid ISPs from throttling their service. And even though Ajit Pai has clearly and emphatically asserted that there has been no evidence of this in the past, the actual evidence speaks very clearly for itself. ISPs can and will throttle service in order to institute a mob-style protection racket in order to line their own pockets even further. Pai seems to firmly believe this will promote infrastructure and growth, whereas 2 decades of experience has taught us that those companies do not spend money whenever they can avoid it and will merely charge sites to avoid throttling and pocket the money. It is an incontrovertible fact that is as inevitable as the world turning. ISPs will be greedy. I would urge everyone to share this story and others like it to raise awareness about the travesty that is Ajit Pai's quest to abolish net neutrality. Reach out to government representatives wherever they might be found, by phone, by email, by social media. Let them know that there is something fundamentally wrong with what is happening at the FCC. If you are unsure where to go, a link to the Senate.gov site where your Senate representative email and phone number can be found will be in the description down below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.